The next session, panel discussion on investment, financing and business avenues in urban railways, infrastructure and mobility industry in India. We would like to invite our eminent panelist, Mr. Sudhendu J. Sinha, Advisor Infrastructure and E-Mobility Niti Aayog. A warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Abhijit Sinha, Program Director, Ease of Doing Business. Warm welcome. I invite Mr. Nanduri Srinivas, Director Operations and Business Development, DFCCIL. I invite Mr. Ashish Saini, Director, FA and CEO, Northern Railway, Indian Railways. Mrs. Vinita Srivastava, Executive Director, Heritage Railway Board. I think she will be joining us any moment now. Mr. Harsh Dhingra, Management Consultant, Rail and Metro. And the session will be moderated by Dr. Namrata Kalsi, Principal Architect, DMRC. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. And also, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Dr. Namrata is presently working as a Principal Architect at Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, DMRC. Previously, she was posted as Senior Architect at Delhi State Industrial and Infrastructure Development Corporation Limited and worked extensively on industrial projects like Industrial Complex at Ranikheda and Khanjawala, redevelopment projects like DTC Bus Depot IP Estate, interiors for various DSIIDC offices, and in professional and official capacity, she had the opportunity to contribute to amendments in Unified Building Bylaws and Master Plan of Delhi 2012. And the time duration for this session, ma'am, is 45 minutes. Over to you.
I think I'd like to leave the seat for Mrs. Vinita. Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad that we are part of the second session of Indian Infra 2022. So this subject, investment, financing and business avenues in urban railway infrastructure and mobility industry in India is quite a heavy subject, and 45 minutes is quite challenging. But we will try to do justice, seeing the very heavyweight panel list that is there in this segment. And since it is dealing with money, money makes the go world round. So this will be a very important session for this seminar which is being held today. Next, from here. So I would like to take a 3,000 view of this segment, that mobility is one of the upcoming 13 mega trends to form transformational themes like connectivity and convergence, cognitive areas, brick and click, smart and green, social trends, new business models, innovation and innovating to zero, economic trends, urbanization in which the city is the customer, infrastructure development, future of energy and mobility. Coming to the mobility sector, jargon like next-gen telematics, intelligent transport, energy management system, and next-gen urban traffic system. We have been hearing this jargon since long, but now it will be a household name. But if this infrastructure is so exorbitant, how we will do it? How India will take up the challenge? We have an impressive lineup of heavyweight panelists who are well informed to share this knowledge to enlighten the wonderful audience, keen audience who is sitting here. So everybody knows Mr. Sudhendu J. Sinha, who is Advisor, Infrastructure and E-Mobility in the Niti Aayog. Shri Sinha works as an advisor at the Niti Aayog in the National Institution for Transformation of India, the apex think tank of the Government of India. He has experience over 27 years in operations, infrastructure planning, coordination, management at field and policy making levels in the Indian Railways with considerable success and appreciation. His performance has been recognized and awarded twice at national level, that is National Award for E-Governance in 2019 and 20, for excellence in providing citizen-centric delivery of Department of Administrative Reform and Public Grievances, Government of India. National Award for Outstanding Service, Ministry of Railway, Government of India in 2006, and thrice at the Ministry of Railway level. He has also served as Dean of Indian Railway Institute of Transport Management, that is IRITM, Lucknow, and General Manager Web Application at the Center for Railway Information Systems, CRIS. So, as a keen audience, we would like to know that what are the sources of finance and how to leverage more funding from the private sector in this capex-heavy industry.
So thanks, and at the onset, let me congratulate this particular event that has brought so many people around, so many those who are thought leaders kind of, and on the topic of multi-various topic, including that of finance and investment, which is going right now. Now, if you see the budget precisely, then in the budget, the first 2 pages, they always highlight the philosophy of the budget, the principal anchors of the budget. So in this year's budget, and it has been repeated also, the third basic philosophy is that we must work to create a virtuous cycle whereby the private finance is supported by public finance. So the public funds should be used in a way so that the private people are encouraged, attracted to invest into the infrastructure stream. All of you are aware that the moment government took over, it had a very, very, unified approach to infrastructure. And this was happening for the first time. Henceforth, it was also always a distributed, disjointed kind of approach. So what government did was that they decided that we must have a national infrastructure pipeline. They created it with 22 infrastructure sectors. That is what focus was there. 17 of them were economic infrastructure, 5 of them turned out to be social infrastructure, and they said that we are going to have a kind of holistic approach, we are going to have a unified focus on these all 17 sectors. So that is how we started with. And there was a budgetary allocation of 111 crore rupees, in which it was also laid down that what percentage should be coming from the sources other than government sources. So the idea was very clear that from day one we ought to be working in a direction so that the private fund is attracted towards it. Now, let me take it on a very, very simpler level. Why will a person, why will an individual, why will a investment company, why will they reach out for investment in infrastructure? So there has to be, let's think of the fundamentals. The first is that he is reaching out to you for a specific amount of growth of his fund. He wants his fund to grow and the positive spin-off to reach out to him. That is the first kind of, that is the first requirement with which he is reaching out to you. That means that he does not want a very high yield, but he does want a risk-free, long duration yields. That is the requirement. And similarly, there are other requirements also that we will elaborate. And that is the way he reaches out to you. And it's the job of the project proponent ministry to tailor out a contract system in a way so that it gives comfort to the private investor to reach out to this. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I welcome here Mrs. Vinita. I request you to come to the sofa in the front before we proceed ahead. There are 11 Industrial corridors comprising 30 nodes are coming up to promote trade and industry in the country. 90 textile clusters, 109 pharmacy sectors, 38 electronic manufacturing zones, 2 defense corridors, not to mention mega food projects in the country. We have with us Mr. Srinivas Naduri, an official of 1989 batch of Indian Railways Traffic Service, IRTS. Mr. Nanduri had joined DFCCIL as Director, Operation and Business Development in June 2020. After completing his master's degree in agriculture economics from Indian Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi, initially he also served with Reserve Bank of India. In the year 1991, he joined Indian Railways. He has worked in important key posts of Indian Railways with Chief Passenger Transportation Manager and Chief Traffic Planning Manager, South West Railways, Hubli. Apart from these posts held, he has also worked as Executive Director, Fuel Transportation, NTPC, Executive Director, Coal Movement, Singaneri Colliers Co. Limited, and General Manager, IRCTC. In this multi-dimensional role of BD and operation, how do you intend to fulfill the large expectations from dedicated freight corridor? This is what we are wanting to know from you, sir.
Morning, everybody. Dedicated freight corridor happens to be the largest iconic project undertaken by Indian Railways. We are coming to an extent of about 1,25,000 crore project, which is basically aimed to be the panacea for all the line capacity problems and problems associated with the speeds of Indian Railways freight traffic. In the 2 corridors which we are constructing and which we are likely to commission in the next 1 year, we are providing a solution as far as capacity expansion is concerned for a 5 trillion economy, which is going to be the country's stature. If Indian Railways is looking at meeting the demand, then DFC is the answer. Against 30-40 trains moving on each direction, we are capable of moving 120 trains. That means almost 4 times the capacity is going to be built. Our USP has been faster, longer, heavier mode trains with the ease of doing business, quality of business which we are going to render, and ensure that the freight gets the primacy which it deserves. If you are aware, on every ticket you purchase, you will find that your travel is subsidized. That subsidy comes from partly, or most part of it is coming from the freight transport which is Indian Railways is undertaking. And that freight transport has always been riddled with the problems of slow movement, giving primacy to passenger segment. So there is an uncertainty which DFC, being the prime focus given to the freight transport, we will be able to eliminate those myths of goods train movement. Let me tell you, already in the last 2 years when we have started operations, our average speeds of Indian Railway freight traffic is about 60 plus in the sections where we have operated. Some of the trains which have run there have achieved average speeds more than the Rajdhani average speeds. So that is the way the future of the freight transportation is going to be. Unhindered access to the freight transport, dedicated monitoring, and a sustained long high-speed runs which require new types of wagons with modern facilities. Also, the entire construction is of high standards, so We have encouraged a lot of materials to be brought in, lot of construction from the advanced firms with new techniques. Now, the other thing which we are going to do is IT packaging, wherein the customers who will send the cargo will be able to get the benefit of cargo tracking as well as the transit assurances and transit guarantees. Now, this is going to transform the way the freight traffic has been handled so far. Third, with each and every station being an economic activity center and with the accent on each district becoming one product development, so far the government schemes are coming, we are able to develop our stations as economic activity centers. Each center will spur growth in that area. We are now looking at startups coming in, and those startups will be taking up basic accent is on pelletization of the cargo. We are looking at going back to the roots and taking up small cargo in a big way so that aggregation will become an issue, and we will be taking up that blue ocean which we have been missing. That aggregation and will be possible only through first lane and last lane connectivity agents who will be service providers who will bring in palletization and mechanization. We are also introducing certain innovative strategies wherein new types of traffic will be coming through, new types of traffic streams will be caught. We will not be confined to the Indian Railways traditional commodity basket, but we will be concentrating on other types of baskets which are not in our fold. So these are the marketing strategies which are going to come. So to reach that 45% market share, we will have a significant role.
Thank you, sir. So next on our lineup is Mr. Abhijit Sinha. Abhijit Sinha is a technocrat, policy entrepreneur, currently contributing with technical projects in the Prime Minister Initiative on Ease of Doing Business as National Program Director of EODB Services, previously associated with Vibrant Gujarat Pilots. So he is currently National Program Director, Ease of Doing Business and Project Director, NHEV. Of NPR, UIDAI, IMNCI, Asha Anganwadi before joining the then CM Modi's Citizen for Accountable Governance CAG team in 2014 parliamentary polls. His expertise as a next corporate banker was recognized with success in large infrastructure financing on PPP with hybrid and annuity financing models like AHEM, DHAM used in the various ECDB emerging technology. Pilots, NHEV, Disha, he is also president of CPO India and holding additional charge of the National Highway of EV, Jaipur, Delhi, Agra. Pilot project director, where he has completed India's longest 210 e-highway technique trial run between Delhi, Agra in 2020. Earlier this year, in 2022, he commissioned two of India's largest EV charging stations with 100 plus 112 charges with the capacity to charge 1,500 cars in only 24 hours and recorded a maximum of 72% utilization with a minimal break-even tenure of 36 months. Sir, we would like to know in this challenging sector that how do you utilize hybrid model to make the world go around in India?
Ma'am, ease of doing business is actually a difficult task. Percolating and giving this information, trying to pass it on to audience, it's also sometimes bit difficult. Would request and ask our esteemed panelists to allow me to speak in Hindi so that more ease of doing business can be delivered. Thank you. Economy start से अगर मैं बहुत कम शब्दों में बताऊं तो भारत 1947 से अगर इकोनॉमी की देखी जाए उसके पहले की तो छोड़ देते हैं, एग्रीकल्चरल इकोनॉमी हुआ करती थी. जैसे जैसे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग का ग्रोथ हुआ वैसे वैसे हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इकोनॉमी बन गए। उसके आगे बढ़े जैसे जैसे लोग स्किल्ड होते चले गए, हम सर्विस इकोनॉमी बनते गए, और आज हम एक टेक्नोलॉजिकल और इनसे टेक्निकल इकोनॉमी बन गए, जहाँ टेक्नोलॉजी बहुत सारे आयाम को, बहुत सारे सेक्टर्स को बदलने की ताकत रखती है, धीरे धीरे बदल भी रही है। इस पूरे डेवलपमेंट में जब कहीं आपको कुछ डिस्पैरिटी दिखती है, ईज़ ऑफ लिविंग नहीं दिखती है, ईज़ ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस नहीं दिखता है, तो हमें सोचना पड़ता है कि हम कहाँ स्टक हो गए। कहीं तो स्टक हुए, कहीं डेवलपमेंट के नाम पे हमने बहुत सारी गाड़ियाँ खरीद ली और अभी वो गाड़ियाँ हमारे यहाँ चोक हो गई। आप अपने शहर की बात कर लें या आसपास के शहरों की बात कर लें, वो आज हम अपनी AQI को कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, कभी हम अपनी ट्रैफिक को कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। सो हम जहाँ स्टक हुए हैं, अगर उसको, उसके 3 एग्जाम्पल मैं आपके सामने रखूँ तो ईज़ ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस बेहतर ढंग से आप तक पहुँच पाएगा। हेल्थ केयर का डेटा हमारे पास बहुत सारा कुछ होता है, लेकिन हेल्थ केयर के सिस्टम में आशा आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स, उसका मैंने यूनिसेफ के साथ 2012 में जो पायलट किया था, उसमें आशा आंगनवाड़ी वर्कर्स अपने डेटास को लिखती हैं कागज़ पे, जब वो डिलीवरी हो जाती है तो कागज़ उनकी क्लेम मिलने के बाद फेंक दिया जाता है। सो कभी डिजिटलाइज नहीं हो पाया, कभी AI/ML के लिए वो एनालिटिकल तौर पे वो तैयार नहीं हो पाया। वैसे ही ट्रांसपोर्ट का डेटा, आज आप परेशान होते हैं ट्रैफिक रूल से, एक्सीडेंट से, बहुत सारी चीज़ों से, कोई किसी को हिट करके चला जाता है, हम कनेक्ट नहीं कर पाते हैं कि हु इज़ दिस, और ही ऑल्सो वुड नॉट हैव द फियर दैट आई शुड नॉट ब्रेक द ट्रैफिक रूल, बिकॉज जो अभी वाहन का डेटा है उसको काफ़ी हद तक किया जाए। मैं कुछ समय पहले की बात बता रहा हूँ आपको, अभी उसके ऊपर काफ़ी काम चल रहा है। वैसे ही अगर ट्रांसपोर्ट, हेल्थ केयर, एजुकेशन जैसी चीज़ों को देखें, हर जगह कुछ ना कुछ डिस्पैरिटी दिखती है और वहाँ कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटी बनती है। ये अपॉर्चुनिटी जिनको मैनेज करना है, जिनको डिलीवर करना है, उस इकोसिस्टम की डिलीवरी में एक नया जनरेशन स्टार्ट होता है। ये जनरेशन आपके एयरपोर्ट को, आपके स्टेशन को, आपके रेलवे को, आपके ट्रैफिक को कहीं ना कहीं से वैसे डिलीवर करना चाहते हैं जिसकी पोटेंशियल हमारे अंदर है, लेकिन उसकी पॉलिसी अभी तक नहीं है। उसमें जो टेक्नोलॉजीज़ यूज़ होंगे उनके ऊपर गाइडलाइंस क्लियर नहीं है, या फाइनेंस को, उस फाइनेंस के पूरे सेक्टर को उसके ऊपर उतना कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होता है। ऐसे पोजीशंस पे, ऐसे क्रिटिकल डिलीवरी सेगमेंट पे आज हमारी देश की इकोनॉमी खड़ी है, जहाँ आपके पास कंपोनेंट्स एंड रेसिपीज एंड इंग्रेडिएंट्स तो सारे हैं, लेकिन इट इज़ नॉट टर्निंग आउट टू बी ए प्रॉफिटेबल, वायबल and ease in living and ease of doing business to people and the sectors. So how do we recognize these type of opportunities, orchestrate them into a small, very nascent level pilot, and then get an model RFP or a policy out of it? This is what ease of doing business we do. To an extent, if I categorize or group them into 4, then first is standardization, certification, or whatever regulation required for that particular technology, which might not be there, and this is not an accusation. They would not be there because such type of technology were never used in these sectors. So expecting to have a ready-made policy is too much. Second, the financial sector would not have confidence into such orchestrated delivery, which gives you so much comfort. I can quote you 3 examples right away. पहले बहुत सारा पैसा खर्च होता था एजुकेशन में और हेल्थ में। सेंट्रल लेवल पे अगर आप CAG की रिपोर्ट देखें, स्टेट की रिपोर्ट देखें, तो बहुत कुछ स्पेंड हुआ, लेकिन अगर आप उस गांव में या उस ज़िले में चले जाएं, या कभी कभी पत्रकार बंधु हमारे चले भी जाते हैं पूछने के लिए कि आपको क्या मिला, आधा से ज़्यादा लोग यही कहेंगे कि हमें कुछ नहीं मिला, यहाँ कोई हेल्थ नहीं है, यहाँ कोई एजुकेशन नहीं। क्या इसको बहुत हद तक DBT ने कंट्रोल नहीं कर लिया? लेकिन DBT के लिए देर वॉज सम ऑर्केस्ट्रेशन। आई वॉज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ द पायलट विच वी कॉल आधार टुडे, यूनिक आइडेंटिफिकेशन अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया दैट टाइम। सो अगर एजुकेशन की बात करें, हेल्थ की बात करें, लोगों की बात करें, जहाँ हमें बहुत सारे लोगों तक पहुँचना है, तो इस तरह के डिलीवरीज़ को जहाँ आप मैनेज करके प्रिसीजन, अकाउंटेबिलिटी एंड ट्रांसपेरेंसी लाते हैं कि हाँ इतने करोड़ रुपए अगर ट्रांसफ़र हुए तो सीधे इन अकाउंटों में ट्रांसफ़र हुए, इन लोगों के पास गए। और इसमें इंडिया अभी अपने पूरे सेगमेंट में सबसे लीडिंग पोजीशन पे है। सो आगे आने वाले समय में हम क्या कर सकेंगे, क्या पूरा कर पाएंगे, इसके लिए ज़रूरी है ऐसे छोटे पायलट्स जो हम एक पॉलिसी ला के देते हैं, जो पॉलिसी कभी एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती थी. सो पॉलिसी एंटरप्रेन्योर इज़ वन ऑफ द आंसर टू योर क्वेश्चन मैम, which would be required. And the second, we need to identify these opportunities and bring them on the funding and financing platform as a circular financing. When we say circular economy, it is not only the waste management. It is investing into those areas where a delivery can sort out your daily routine problems, your daily business problem. बहुत सारी चीज़ें वेबसाइट से हो जाती हैं, बहुत सारे जो डिपॉजिट और सबमिशंस ओवर द काउंटर होते थे आज की डेट में वेबसाइट पे होते हैं. लेकिन अभी भी बहुत सारा कुछ करना बाकी है जहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट की ज़रूरत. अगर आप ट्रांसपोर्ट के सेक्टर को ही ले लें तो somebody comes in and says I can manage Delhi NCR transport the way Dubai is managed, but I will cost a certain crores of rupees. Can we say no to him? No. We will have to say yes to them, because we are by psychology or by philosophy stuck in a place where we own a lot of vehicle and we cannot disown them. We cannot suddenly start going on the bus. There would be some requirement to improve and deliver it in that way that it fits into our pocket, in our need and in our requirement. So the funding model of hybrid is all about bringing all this together, orchestrating and then taking care of where operationalism is getting challenged. The main challenge which we face into delivering a pilot project, which is coming out to be with a model RFP and the funding model, is operationalism. And operationalism cannot be overpowered, it cannot be challenged, there cannot be any policy copy-paste from some other European Western country. That has to happen in India with its own realities and intricacies. So that's the lowest hanging fruit which I see India can do. If you want a very live example, then we are the only country who can tell world that how you can live your life with nature, sustainability and environment. That is what Life project says of NITI, Prime Minister's Office and now UN's also. That's the opportunity which we hold. Lowest hanging fruit you ask, I think that's the lowest hanging fruit which we can achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abhijit. The sincerity in your voice was heart-touching. Thank you very much. India is rich in natural beauty and cultural heritage, from lofty temples to mysterious forts, heritage cities and pilgrimage center. The list is unending. And of course, it is unexploited. We have with us here Mrs. Vanita Srivastav, ED, Heritage Railway Board. She is an IRSME, Indian Railway Service Mechanical Engineer Officer, and has served various leadership roles in over 20 years in various government ministries of railways, steel, culture, and heavy industries. She is currently heading the Heritage Division of Ministry of Railways in the Royal Railway Board as Executive Director, Heritage from April 2019. Ma'am, we would like to hear from your own voice that how the heritage in this country can be leveraged to develop the economy in the country.
Namaskar, and first of all, a sincere apology for missing such erudite opening statements. The only defense I can offer is that I'm junior most, so a lot more permissions required to be here. I have to put a small statement about heritage as applied to urban infrastructure we see in India today, and to remind this gathering that although our history is thousands of years old, the infrastructure, as we term it, roads and buildings, etc., in 1855, under the Governor General Dalhousie of the then British Government of India, was set up the PWD department, the Public Works Department. It was founded as a separate branch of India. And so at that time, everybody is talking about infrastructure. What was infrastructure? It was roads, yes. It was irrigation projects. It was military projects. and it was managed by the military boards in the various presidencies. Further, in 1855, the CPWD Secretariat came up in Kolkata. If anybody has fathers or grandfathers who were there in the engineering departments of the time, they might remember. What was all this infrastructure trying to achieve? Today we talk about trillion-dollar economies and other things, but at that time, they wanted to raise the military strength to, of course, keep a hold on the subcontinent, and also raise avenues for revenue generation. So what did they build? They built railways, yes, but they also built roads, toll plazas, prisons, post offices, irrigation projects, soldier barracks, cantonments. You'd be surprised to know that the first PWD budget, any guesses what was the size of it? It was 223 lakhs for an annual budget, which is like a fairly small project in today's terms. Where am I getting to with all of this? It is that yes, we inherited legacy assets, heritage assets in buildings, heritage assets in railways, but what do we do today? Do we destroy all of them and rebuild afresh? Do we even know where we are headed? It is an appeal as well as a suggestion for future policy that many countries have such legacy infrastructure, and they don't destroy it all to build anew. They find ways, creative ways to integrate it. You have, Urban News has given me an opportunity for a small presentation where I'll cover some of these, but that's the opening statement. The lowest hanging fruit then is investment into such projects which help to preserve the heritage while building a way towards modernity. That would conclude my statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It is well said that Indian Railway keeps the country on the go, providing momentum and movement to the country. However, the country is expecting far more from the organization with the Gati Shakti, added speed, modernization, upgradation, and newer infrastructure. We have a young dynamic officer, Mr. Ashish Saini, Deputy FA and CAO, who is an IRAS, Indian Railway Account Services Officer, high-performing civil servant with a passion for public policy making and as well as implementing. He is currently working as, I think I've already said that, in Northern Railways, more than 10 years of experience impacting positive organizational and societal outcomes through database decision making, use of technology, and change leadership. Mr. Ashish has also authored several articles on public policy and the transport sector in the eminent magazines. Mr. Ashish, over to you, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Since the topic is about urban mobility infrastructure, I would like to say a few words why we are not able to gather the amount of funds which are required for urban mobility, and which is sometimes called as the urban financing gap. So the first thing and the first major thing that you need to understand when we talk about urban mobility is that urban mobility is usually done at the municipalities or the urban local bodies at state level. So the funding is initiated at this level, and then, as Sudhendu sir said, we can think of bringing in private investments and all. But if the first level itself does not work, that is where the gap comes in. So the first important reason why we are not able to gather the amount of funding is the inadequate amount of revenue that is generated by the urban local bodies. So if you look at the user charges that these bodies take from the customers, they are actually not in agreement with the amount of service that is given, and there are a lot of economic distortions. For example, a number of implicit costs are not taken into consideration while deciding these user charges. Or take the example of cars plying on roads. There's a lot of implicit cost which is involved. These cars take up a lot of space on the roads. They lead to environmental degradation, and they are parked on the sideways, and they take up specific space on the sideways without paying for that. So all these costs are not being covered, and that is one of the major reasons why our urban local bodies do not have the funds to invest. The second reason is that while we expect our urban local bodies to do a lot of work, we expect them to build the infrastructure and everything, but the amount of funding that they have is very minimal. So there is a gap between the expenditure responsibility of these urban local bodies and their financial capabilities. And that is why the investment does not occur. The third reason is there is a periodicity mismatch. What I mean by that is that most of the urban infrastructure projects, they have a long gestation period. So what happens is while the funding for these projects is required at the very moment, but the revenue starts coming after say 5, 10, 20 years. And hence there is a gap between when the revenue comes and when the expenditure is done. And this makes them a very unattractive option for investors. And hence gathering investment for these projects becomes difficult. The fourth reason, which I think is the poor capacity of our urban local bodies. Our urban local bodies just do not have the capability and the expertise to first of all look for different sources of revenue and manage their own finances as well. I would like to take an example which came in the economic survey, a fact which came in the economic survey. It said that cities like Bengaluru and Pune, they are able to collect only 5 to 20% of the property tax, the potential that they have. So that means more than 80% of the property tax, they're just not able to collect. So if we are able to gather these resources, then automatically we have funds to invest in infrastructure, and then we can ask private parties also to come in. So I think these are the 4 major reasons for the underfunding gap which we have with respect to urban infrastructure mobility. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the problems in this sector. Last but not the least, we have with us Mr. Harsh Dhingra, the segment that keeps the business moving through private sector participation. Mr. Harsh Dhingra is a management consultant, has expertise in business development, corporate business, and marketing strategy in the field of rail and metro segment, expertise in the market development, product development, strategic management, PPP project, etc. Professionally as an electrical engineer with marketing and project management background, earlier he was also working with Bombardier Transportation as chief country representative from India. So let's have his view as a person from the private sector with in-depth understanding of transport and mobility segment.
Well, I would like to capture 2-3 elements here based on the discussion we had in the last half an hour among the panelists, especially on the interest of the private sector in the urban transportation project or the rail project. Let me take you back 3 decades back when projects like Delhi Metro started, another railway project started with almost 40 to 50% funding which is coming from Government of India or the state governments. I think it was 50-50 equity with 0% expected rate of return. Balance about 50% was financed by bilateral funding like JICA or multilateral funding like World Bank, ADB, KFW and all. And normally the rate of interest which was offered was 0.1 or 0.25 to almost 2% with a period of 15 years or 35 years. 35 years was JICA, and now I believe it is 50 years with a tied loan for high-speed railway. But the fact is that over the last 20 years we have seen is that these 50% funding which was done by this foreign exchange lending which comes from the multilateral or bilateral funding, actual rate of interest is coming around 9 to 10%. So is it worth continuing with this kind of funding for this project, or is the time to review the funding of such projects where 40% funding is done with 0% expected rate of return by Government of India, is the taxpayer money, and 50% is where actual rate of interest is working out to be 9%. So it's the time to review that how this funding of these major projects, capital intensive and high capital requirement, through commercial funding as well as the public funding. And the best example for me to give here is the current NHAI bond which has come, which they are able to generate 13 years money at 5,000 crores at only 8% taxable bonds. Whether it is 8% taxable or 6% non-taxable, is it not the money available in India? I personally, from the private sector, I would say a lot of money is available in India to finance such projects. Government of India is otherwise also giving some kind of a guarantees when they are funding the metro projects or the rail project, similar kind of guarantees can also be provided for these kind of a project, and the money will be available from commercial borrowing at 8 to 9% and also 6 to 8% depending on taxable, non-taxable from the public investment. So money is available in India by the institutions, by the funds, by the commercial banks, as well as the public to fund such a project. So as a Mr. Sinha is sitting there and Niti Ayog, I would like him to review this policy now, that why we continue to have the funding through multilateral funding. Second is on the private investment. Mr. Sila also raised one very, very valid point, that when the private equity investor comes in the market, his expected rate of return is not 0% at what Government of India is doing, but obviously it varies from 12 to 15% depending on the risk involved in that project. So when government start realizing this fact that this money is available as 12 to 15% on equity and 7 to 8% on the commercial, effective about 9 to 11%, then these projects become somewhat commercially viable because there is no expected returns from the Government of India, it is funded from the private sector, and these kind of equity investment can come. Lot of pension funds are available in Indian market, as well as some institutional funds are available who can fund such project at 10 to 12%, which is feasible if some kind of a guarantees can be provided. So coming to the point which is relevant today is that why only depend on Government of India to fund these projects? Let us bring the private sector with the kind of expected return they are having, or the public money or the commercial money, to fund such projects in India. This is my first take on it, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So that's my CV. Ma'am filled in some of the information, that, but I'll just update you that I'm B.R. Chen PhD. I specialize in metro rail, transit-oriented development, property development, building architecture, master planning, large infrastructures in PPP mode or different type of modes, and real estate development and design. We are absolutely updated as per industry standards. We are already working on BIM 360 cloud environment, AutoCAD, but we do not leave touch with hand sketching. So we are working in various capacities with different state governments and Government of India. These are some of the sectors in which I have worked, which are very diverse, but it comes to metro, strength in building bylaws and sanctions, then housing, property development, institutional buildings, industrial buildings as well. So although I am the moderator, but I will just talk about three very humble points which I have observed in metro. The first point is about 5 to 8% of the finances in the metro are generated from the property development, which may be property from the station boxes, integrated station, or it is standalone projects. However, every little bit small revenue stream is held very tightly by the department to leverage the finances coming in from the private sector in the form of PB. PB is like money arising out of advertisements, from naming of the stations, from kiosks and other such things which keep coming to metro from time to time. Second point I would like to speak about is transit-oriented development, in which the Delhi government, Delhi DDA under center government, as well as the national transit-oriented development policy with the railways leveraging. In normal norm, we normally get one FAR in the station. But if we go with the TOD norm, the FAR is 4. So there is a difference of 4. Second important thing which we get here is that we get about discount of 30% parking in the TOD projects, which is also very high because each car, when we make the infrastructure, costs a lot of money, especially if it is in the basement or multi-story parking lot. And even if it is parked on the ground, then the land has value to it, money to it, on which a car is being parked. Transit-oriented development, there can be few models. Either the metros can do the project on their own. But in case it is being done by private sector, then the extra money generated from the extra FAR can be shared by different agencies. Then there is the land value capture, which is DDA is planning in the Narela area, in which because of the metro and the money will pay MRC upfront. Then there is the third point, which is the unbundling of the metro infrastructure. As given by the previous panelist, it has not been a very successful venture, but in a very small, humble manner, like unbundling of ticketing, unbundling of lifts, escalators, maybe operation of depots can also be tried. So these are three small things. We don't have much time left on it. I had a question for my panelist, but maybe I will just request one of the panelists who can answer this. Right, I'm sorry I could not put across the last question, but I really thank my panelists and giving the informed information to the audiences. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for wonderfully moderating this session, and also a huge thank you to all our eminent panelists for those deliberations, those inputs, those valuable inputs we had from them during this session. And I would now request Mr. Vinod Chan, Director Corporate Business, Urban Infra Group, to do the honors of presenting a token of gratitude to each one of them. We begin with Mr. Sudhendu J. Sinha, Advisor Infrastructure and E-Mobility, Niti Aayog. Thank you very much indeed, sir, for sparing your valuable time and gracing this occasion. We present to Mr. Abhijit Sinha, Program Director, Ease of Doing Business. Thank you, sir. To Mr. Nanduri Srinivas, Director, Operations and BD, DFCCIL. Thank you very much indeed, sir. To Mr. Ashish Saini, Deputy FA and CEO, Northern Railway, Indian Railways. Thank you very much indeed. To Mrs. Vinita Srivastava, Executive Director, Heritage Railway Board. Thank you very much indeed, ma'am, for gracing this occasion. To Mr. Harsh Dhingra, Management Consultant, Rail and Metro. Thank you, sir. And to our wonderful moderator of this session, Dr. Namrata Kalsi, Principal Architect, DMRC. Ma'am, that was indeed a very wonderful moderation from your side. And ladies and gentlemen, wish we had more time for more discussions, but we have this very important award presentation coming up post-lunch. We need to be in time for that. And may I request for a group photograph with the panel? Is a presentation on issues in major urban infra contracts and suggested measures to achieve sustainable goals, which will be presented by Mr. Veer Narayan, who is the Technical Director, Project Management, Railway and Metro, Sistra Limited. He has over 34 years of experience in various leadership positions in projects involving railway works, embankments, bridges, tunnels, road flyovers and track works. Mr. Veer Narayan is ex-RS